the Brad Mario Pod.
Okay, so we are recording, I think.
Check,
levels,
1, 2.
Levels look normal enough, I think.
Yep.
Hello world, I'm Mario, and this is...
Brad.
And we don't have a name yet. We were just talking about that, and we were kind of arguing over some ideas for names, and then we got caught up in an idea for email address, which I think we settled, or did we settle?
We currently settled on bradmariopod@gmail.com.
Yes, and the reason for that is there seem to be many email addresses with Brad and Mario.
Yeah.
So Brad and Mario was taken, Mario and Brad at Gmail was taken, Mario N Brad, like Guns N' Roses, was taken, Brad and Mario.
Right. Brad 8 Mario was taken.
Hopefully not. We do have food here. There's a kitchen.
Oh, okay.
So you don't have to eat me. Yeah. So I think we've settled for the Gmail of Brad
Mario Pod.
Yes.
At.
And the reason we're mentioning that is because
gmail.com.
we still don't have a name, and we would like feedback for a name for this
show
thing that we're doing.
Right.
And the idea is we both Brad, let's start with how we met, right? I mean, like
So the idea for the name of the show is, let's talk about how we met.
Yes.
This is how I met your mother, Mario. No, the current working title you have is Comedy is Metal is Comedy.
Yes.
Because we're going to talk about comedy
And metal.
is comedy.
Yes.
Right. I think comedy of metal is better because it spells out comic as the acronym.
Comedy
versus-
of metal is comedy.
Right. Comedy of metal is comedy. Spells comic versus yours spells semic.
Yes, but if we have comedy is and then the I in is an O umlaut, it's comedy is metal is comedy. Then it still spells out comic, and it has an umlaut in it. Which, how cool is that?
Very clear and obvious to people, I think.
So anyway, we met in Tampa where we live. We were in a band together. I believe I was very drunk at the Brass Mug, and you were very drunk at the Brass Mug, and you were.
Is that how it went?
Dude, yeah, you were in Rip Torn, right?
Right.
And you had gone through a couple bassists and needed one, and I was kind of like new to trying to be in the scene. Like I had done some like small bands and some open mic stuff, like with some small bands in college, but nothing that broke through. And we knew somebody who was acting as your singer at the time.
Yes.
And we won't say anything more about
Old
that.
Sven.
Yeah. But yeah, he introduced me to you, and then you grabbed my phone and entered in your name B-Rad.
Oh, that's why you still have.
Yeah,
You mentioned earlier that you still have it like that.
Yeah, my phone still says B-Rad because
Oh.
we were just drunk at the Mug, and you were like, "Hey, I'm B-Rad."
Well, I honestly don't remember that.
I believe
because
you.
When I think about the first time we met, I think about band practice, like going to the space. We had a storage space that we made a studio, and that guy saying, "Hey, I'm bringing out Mario. You know, he's a friend of mine, and we're going to try him out on bass. He's like a great guitarist, but you know, he'll play bass." I'm like, "Okay, well, we'll bring him out. Let's meet him." And it was just a good connection from then. Like we've been great friends since.
And I totally lied that I could play bass. Like I had.
Well, you could shred guitar, you could play bass.
Right.
I mean,
Well, I could play guitar. I owned a bass, and it was an old
Right.
Fender Squire bass that I had gotten for Christmas one time in high school.
usually the entry for most bassists is
Yeah.
just owning a bass.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
get
yeah.
one, you're in. That's how I got in my first band. They said, "Brad, get a bass, and you're in." And so I got a bass, and
Yeah.
started my music career.
I think that's actually the story probably of most bass players.
Right.
I know
Like,
that's
hey, you're a fat kid, right? Yeah. Okay, get a bass, and then we'll put you behind the drums, and then because we have a band,
yeah.
and you can learn doom doom, ba-doom doom, boom 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 boom.
Yeah, and in my case, it was we'll just take anybody. And yeah, so and that was Rip Torn, right? Which that was
Rip Torn.
That band was your baby, yours and Ben's, right?
Yep.
And Rip Torn, obviously named after of just a really terrible fart.
It was actually the actor.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I didn't
old
remember that.
Elmore Rip Torn.
Is his name actually
I
Elmore?
think his name is Raoul. Raoul Elmore, or something like that. It's like, he has a really weird name.
Was his last name actually Torn?
Yes, and apparently the story is the family calls the head guy Rip or whatever. So
Like from generation to generation?
yeah, I think so. Once he manned up, he was the next Rip.
So he was Rip Jr.
Yeah, a
And
long
then
line of Rips.
And then he became Rip Senior.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, R.I.P.
Rip.
Whoa!
Oh, nice. That's a Touch Mike's moment.
So yeah, and you were inspired by not one of his
Not the actor himself, but
not
the
one
movie.
of his better movies.
Yes, Freddy Got Fingered. His best movie, his
Oh,
greatest
yeah.
role.
Right, not one of his better movies, but his best movie. As the dad in Freddy Got Fingered,
Yeah.
who at the end was portrayed as a llama in the cartoon.
Oh, right, because zebras.
A zebra. Okay,
Zebras in America.
right.
Listen to my hooves.
Um,
You know what's funny though is I think we all really responded to that movie because most of the guys in the band were still living at home and had an overbearing dad a little bit who was they grew up with a dad who was like always telling you what to do, and even when you did it you didn't do it right, and so he's just always kind of on your case, and
weirdly,
and yet you had to move back because he went to California, got his shitty cheese job.
right,
immediately
gives
got
you
fired.
a LeBaron.
You the LeBaron. Well, he got him LeBaron because he was so happy to have him gone. It was like, hey, here's LeBaron, and now I'll never see you again. He was so happy, and of course, 2 weeks later, he comes back because he gets fired.
Right.
And we all know what it's like moving back home and living with your parents again, right?
Sure. I mean, I don't know, but yes.
Well, anyway, we did, and so we just really responded to that. The dad character, and just made us laugh. Like, we could just talk about the movie and we laugh every time. So we're sitting around. It was me, Keenan, and Benzel, and just having some beers. And I said, "Why don't we just call the band Rip Torn?" Yeah, totally, man. And it honestly was the best idea we had.
Yeah, it's a great band name.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it.
I think only
I like it.
Yeah, if you look online, I think there's one other band that's done it.
Yeah, the Rip /Torn from North Carolina.
Right, and there was a Rip Over Torn.
Yeah.
but the Tampa band that we were in was just Rip Torn, all one word, spelled out in zombie print, and then I think you made a death metal logo, which didn't make sense because it wasn't a death metal band, but that's okay.
I just thought it looked cool.
It did look cool. It looked very cool. So yeah, it was a thrash band, comedy thrash, right, with some of groove.
The goal
elements.
was to be Tenacious D mixed with Exodus,
mixed with a touch of Mastodon.
With a touch of Mastodon later on, for sure.
Yeah, so so that's how we met, and so
enough about the band.
Yeah, well, it was so we bonded on music at first, and I think we had probably different tastes in music. I think back then I was still not totally down with harsh vocals. I was I was that asshole. I was that
So you were most assholes,
right? I'm
not sorry. I'm not to say that
guy.
People who like clean singing are assholes.
No. Like what you like, but I was that guy. Who was
I'd say most metal fans.
I can't understand you.
Right, most metal fans. They're entry level. I don't know. I don't want to say entry level, but most people just like good singing. I guess it's hard to really sell bad singing.
Well, I think, and this is interesting, and this is kind of it's a thing I think is true, which is that people come to metal for very different reasons, right? And for some folks, it really is anger, and I'm not dissing that at all, but for some folks, it's really just life sucks, and this was the first kind of music that sounded the way I feel inside. So, kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And I was a dork, man. I was a band kid. I was a music kid, but I also had a considerable amount of anger, but I never wanted to show it. So more aggressive music spoke to me, but I still liked...
Were you ever picked on as a kid though?
Oh yeah.
You were bullied?
I wouldn't say bullied. In second grade, because...
But was it ever a problem for you to where man, I'm the low man, getting your ass kicked every week, lunch money taken, thrown in the dumpster kind of thing?
No, I would say in second grade, I had some moments where I had to like come home and like cry to my parents,
Uh,
who gave the whole like, well, just toughen up
Right.
or beat his ass, and
They're not your real friends.
yeah, like it just wasn't helpful.
Honey, if they beat you up and take your money, they ain't your friends, and don't play with them no more.
But I was lucky though, because in my middle school, when I was in middle school, skateboarding became popular, and along with skateboarding and the MTV kind of culture at the time was
Ooh.
like Jackass, and Bam Margera, whatever.
I think MTV probably, well, for 80s kids, in early 90s kids, was seminal in making their music choices. Like for me,
Yeah.
MTV Spring Break '99, I think, with Limp Bizkit. And Westmoreland is in a black duster, makeup, black makeup, huge black eye contacts in, just looking like a freak.
Yeah.
And they're playing this metal music. I was like, whoa,
Rolling.
that they are the coolest band. It was before Rollin'. It was after the Faith album, the $3 bill.
Was I just know that in break stuff.
But I'm just saying, when I saw that
love
Spring
break
Break
stuff, by the
performance,
way.
that was the thing that sold me on Limp Bizkit.
Nice.
So I'm admitting right now, that was my entry to metal, was Limp Bizkit, because
Oh,
I thought
shit.
they looked cool. And
and who doesn't want to break stuff?
but eventually I bought a Metallica CD and then got on the right path.
Oh, dude, yeah.
But-
Didn't you say that you bought Black Album from Keenan for a quarter?
I did, because he needed a soda after gym,
Yes.
and he was tired of the Black Album, and I said,
Oh,
hey,
yeah, agree there.
hey, I'm the one.
Yeah. It's funny that's.
But the skating that you were saying, like, you were getting into
I was
skating and
lucky.
MTV and skateboarding, Jackass, that all kind of.
I was lucky to be around at a time when counterculture became the norm, kind of, and you didn't just have to be like a jock or you weren't cool. So like I got into skating and I wasn't very good at it. I mean, like I could ollie pretty high, that was about it. But along with that came like just
I had a
having
skating phase too. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And along with that came like having friends who actually liked music that I just happened to like a lot. And I didn't have anything wrong with like pop or hip hop, but like the first time I heard System of a Down, I was like, what is this? I love it.
Yeah.
And then I mean, like parents like classic music, like Zeppelin and stuff. Who doesn't hate that? But like the first time I heard Slipknot, it blew my mind. And I was,
Really?
yeah, and how great was it that they were on MTV too, But
Yeah.
I had never heard that kind of screaming before. But what's funny is I thought that like Slipknot was this band who invented screaming. And I thought
Finally, a band to do something different.
yeah, I was like, someone to do something. I was like, they're like System of a Down, but angrier.
Right.
And it was the Iowa album, which, like, my God, it's still one of the most angry albums I've ever heard, I think. So I became kind of like an elitist in a sense of like, I was like, if you're going to do the screaming thing, you need to be angry. And then emo came around. And I remember someone gave me an As I Lay Dying album. And I listened to it and I liked it. And then I looked at the lyrics, and the lyrics were all about like breakups.
Right, but
It was
you
like,
know,
she left
as
my
I-
heart.
But they're
tattered
they're not emo, right?
they're pretty emo, dude.
Their lyrics are kind of emo-ish, but like there's a genre of music called emo,
Well, right, yeah.
and they are not. They are defined as metalcore.
Yeah, them and like Atreyu. Remember Atreyu?
Yeah.
That was another one. That was like, all the kids around me were
I
listening.
mean, I'm not saying I
to-
know everything about emo music and that whole subgenre, but I just know that like people will probably be aghast at that. So, like,
Okay. I mean, like
You know what's funny? I was going to say about Slipknot, though. I'd never liked Slipknot. Like back in the day when they first came out, it was one of those bands that just didn't ring right for me. I mean, I love System of a Down, Limp Bizkit, Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
All these kind of bands back then, but Slipknot kind of blew past me. I didn't like the more gothy stuff like Cold Chamber and
Okay. I think I heard Slipknot on like the right day. Like I was like particularly angry at my parents, and then someone sent me.
Did you ever have the big jeans?
No, I didn't have the Jenkins.
I never got the big jeans either.
I couldn't get my parents to buy them. I would have.
I got my parents to buy me-
I honestly would have.
My parents
if they
bought me
would've.
one pair, but they didn't have the right size at the store. So I bought one size under what I normally
Oh
wore.
no! So they just fit like normal
So
jeans.
no, I mean like I could put them on, but like I couldn't really like sit down comfortably or anything. I'm like, I'll just lose a few pounds. Yeah, I'm 13 years old.
Dude,
But,
my closet is still filled with clothes that I'm
Yeah.
waiting to fit into again.
So I still have those pants too. I'm still waiting to fit into
Nice.
those. It's never gonna happen.
I hear 90s culture's coming back. I was wondering if like if there's like one guy like Chris Jinko is like running like a garage just waiting to start getting calls because like he's like 90s culture's coming back.
Is that the guy, Chris Jinko?
I made that
Oh,
up.
that sounded really real.
Yeah, well,
I
hey,
believed
you know? I'm trying out this comedy thing. You know?
Yeah. Oh, speaking of which, so we met and joined in a band, and we played a bunch of shows and whatnot. And
Right.
everyone knows the history of Rip Torn, so we don't need to go there. So, but after the aftermath,
Is we bonded
after the incident,
He
after
just
the
winked
incident-
Brad just winked at me, and I laughed.
I'm pretty
as
sure they
if-
heard that wink. It was a
I
very
laughed
loud
as
wink.
if I know what the wink is. I don't, but we're gonna keep going though.
So anyway,
After the
so post incident, we're moving on with our lives. Recovering. Me and Mario actually still remain friends, and recently decided that we got to start doing stand up.
yeah. So the other thing we bonded on when we were in Rip Torn was comedy.
Yeah.
Right. I remember you making
Specifically, comedians like
I remember you making a Seinfeld reference, and I was like, oh. I like Seinfeld too, and like to try to be a little bit consistent. We've been doing some drinking, but to try to be a little bit consistent, like, so I think we were lucky to come up at a time when like metal became popular, right? That's kind of like that conversation from before.
there was a resurgence, I think.
Yeah, well, like, and it wasn't weird to be wearing Jinkos. It wasn't weird to be
Right.
wearing
TRL, Limp Bizkit was number
Right.
one.
Yeah.
Korn, Slipknot, they
It
were all
wasn't weird
number
to be
one
wearing
videos, right?
Metallica, and it wasn't weird to be wearing old school stuff too, like Black Sabbath and stuff like that.
Right.
So I was lucky to have a group of friends who, like, I fit in with because of that, right? So I think I was just lucky to live in a time when if it was like 5 years earlier, I probably would have been bullied. But I was
Oh, yeah.
fortunate not to,
Yeah.
right? But like even as a kid, like the refuges that I had were metal. And I started off with like the lame stuff. I don't want to insult anything, but like started off with the Radio Rock.
Don't,
and then,
hey,
like,
don't belittle your refuges.
But then the other thing I had was comedy. And like I was a kid who would watch The Daily Show every night, even if I
Yeah,
didn't
me too.
understand the political jokes. But like Comedy Central was like what the TV in my room was tuned to.
Well, and we didn't need
You
to.
know?
We didn't ever need to read news or watch news because we watched the Daily Show every night.
Yeah,
so
there's that too. Yeah.
that's why we're so informed these days.
Yeah. And so I like, and I think you probably also, right? Like I remember being a really little kid watching Seinfeld with my parents and just kind of like, I didn't get all the jokes, but I knew it was funny.
Yeah.
I knew there was
what's
something
interesting
there.
is Seinfeld was a little bit later for me because my dad was into it because of reruns. He was not in the show when it was going. Like, you know the story about the Seinfeld finale, right? That no other networks aired anything during the finale.
I did not know that.
They just said, "Hey, we know you're watching Seinfeld, so we're not even going to air anything."
Wow.
I mean, there's pictures of Times Square where the Times Square is shut down because everyone's watching Seinfeld.
I actually like the
Can you
finale.
imagine? That's crazy.
I like the finale. I'm going to say it on the first episode.
Well, this is.
I like
save
the
it for your
finale.
Seinfeld podcast, okay?
Okay. What's the deal with?
Yeah.
Anyway.
No pod for you. But later in life, my dad got into Seinfeld again on reruns, and he started, and I'm like, oh, you really like the Seinfeld show, huh? So we started watching it, and for some reason it became an obsession. So I bought him the Seinfeld DVDs for his birthday.
Yeah.
For every year for like 7 years in a row, and I currently have them at my house. I guess he wasn't as big a Seinfeld fan as I thought. Because I got him the DVDs, like, hey man, let's watch Seinfeld. And he was like, it was just the convenience of having a show on at 6:30. I think some people are like, hey, if you put a show at this time, I'm going to watch it. I'll give it a chance. So put any show there, King of Queens or.
Seinfeld does hit different though because it's so absurd that like you don't like there's some shows that like are absurd enough that you don't get upset about plot holes and inconsistencies and just wacky stuff because you're like, okay, I accept the wackiness. and so Seinfeld goes into that level of absurdity, but they do also have this way of touching on everything in life and two people can watch one episode and get a totally different thing out of it, right? And I realized that later in life. Like I didn't like Elaine when I was a kid because I as
Because you're gay.
right. I was just like, I don't know. But then like I definitely have met like as an adult later on in life. I'm like, oh man, I identify with Elaine on this episode. Like more
right,
so
you never
than
could see her insight.
yeah.
She's like, oh, that's the woman character, and that's the
Yeah.
friend character, and like you're supposed to be Jerry Seinfeld in
Well,
your
well,
mind.
but as a kid, you're Kramer. As a kid,
Oh,
you're. I was Kramer. I had teachers who called me Kramer. I think it was just because I would fall asleep in class and my hair would stick up.
Yeah. I was a
But-
Costanza because my teachers couldn't stand me.
Can't stand
Yeah.
ya.
I was thinking that's like another thing is I think Seinfeld was the first, well, probably not the first show, but the first one I can think of that was like had memes. Like when someone says, "Oh, you gotta
Yeah.
see the baby," it's from that episode.
Yeah, no
You know?
soup for you. People say no soup for you, and they have
Or
never
like
seen the
a
episode.
guy I work with, his name is Drake, and someone I work
Drake's
with.
coffee cake.
He You gotta love the Drake.
I love the Drake. Hate the Drake.
But yeah, so I mean, there's just like such a quotable show. That plus The Simpsons.
Oh yeah. Oh
two,
yeah.
two classics.
And
in the
I would
90s
just
right
I
there.
would just watch on Comedy Central was like Friday night stand up. Like there was many Friday nights where I didn't have things to do like in middle
Okay.
school and high school, and I would just watch Friday night stand up.
Was it Comedy Central Presents?
I believe so.
So those 30-minute episodes there was like so many that were classics, like the Jim Gaffigan one with the corn in the
the
backfield.
cornfield, yeah.
That episode was so I remember like because when I first saw it, I thought like, oh, this guy's gonna be terrible. He just looked like, oh man, this
He-
guy's gonna be weird.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, he just hit the right note.
yeah.
And his joke about the Mexican food and like what's on
was
that
that from that
tostada?
special?
I think he was like, what's the tostada?
It's like rice, beans, and
meat, cheese, or vegetable.
yeah.
Just say something in Spanish. I'll bring you some food.
Yeah, that was from that special.
I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
But
yeah.
the Dane Cook one, where he has
Yeah.
the drum set in the background and he has the Burger King coming around and this secret sauce loading up. I mean, I remember watching that, trying to memorize every line. Like, I was
Yeah.
a big Dane Cook fan when he first came out, and then I feel like that was about the time when I got so into comedy that when I learned that he was like seen kind of like as a hack comedian. That I was like, oh, okay. Well, I don't want to listen to hack comedians. I want to listen to the real legends like Carlin and Pryor and whatnot.
That was the beginning of
Kinda like-
Brad going with the flow.
Well, kind of like with metal, we all started out with System
Yeah.
of Down and
yeah.
Limp Bizkit, but then at some point you go like, man, these older guys are saying like, oh, but you got to listen to like Malevolent Creation and like
Dude, yeah.
the old school. Everyone wants you to appreciate old school because it's like they feel like a lot of these bands were overlooked by like, you think metal, you think Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, or whatever. You name off the big names, but they go like, but what about Dio or Carcass?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if Carcass is on level.
I thought you were going that direction of like the death metal people.
No, but I
who
mean,
were-
even bigger bands like Dio or who's another band? Merciful Fate.
Merciful. Oh yeah, Merciful Fate. Yeah, perfect example.
Overlooked. But I mean, they were really
Um,
a satanic band, so you can't really market that. Back in the 80s,
yeah. I mean, they did surprisingly well, and that the whole the PMRC or whatever, like the whole like censorship thing, really
Right.
helped them too.
they basically just created a sticker to put on CDs to tell kids which CDs were really cool.
Exactly.
which ones weren't.
Exactly.
Did you ever get your mom or dad ever like stop you from listening to certain music?
Oh, dude, yeah. That's probably like a story for another.
Okay.
I've got stories about my parents.
Okay.
But like one of the first riffs. So
What was your band's like? Did you ever buy a CD that was taken away from you? You can't listen to this.
Not buy, but had friends burn.
Which CD was that?
This is so fucking lame, but just Sabbath, man.
They said you
Sabbath.
can't listen to Black Sabbath.
My parents are the kinds of people who like I guess they're classic boomers in a sense, but like what they thought 20 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever, is still what they think.
Oh.
And so at some point someone told my dad that Black Sabbath was devil worship, and he just never turned around from that. At some point I do not like AC/DC, but I did when I was a kid. Beavis and Butthead liked AC/DC.
So like the shirt, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be a Slayer or Anthrax shirt. I think it was supposed to be an Anthrax shirt,
Really?
but the network MTV was just like, well, it's got to be more relatable, and also Anthrax is like killing people right now, like because I believe that's the
Wow.
story. Don't quote me. There's a lot of interviews with
Yeah,
Mike
might have
Judge
to
on
Google
it.
that one.
But anyway, but my dad said something about I had like an AC/DC poster, and he tore it down because
Damn, tore it down
because
like,
of
ripped
the
it down.
because of the like there was a rumor that AC/DC meant they were bisexual. Like it goes both ways. and my parents weren't having that. And then my dad also said, I think he made this up, that AC/DC stands for After Christ Devil Comes. Which, if that's what that stood for, they would be
yeah.
such a better band.
Like, why don't you just make it more intriguing to me?
Yeah, like if that's what AC, but instead it's just
Kind of like Kiss was Knights in Satan's Service or Kids in Satan's Service.
Oh,
I heard that
if
was the
they
acronym.
were, that would be so much better.
Man, like Kiss was. I mean, as a kid, Kiss seems like such a cool band, but like when I think about the band now, they seem so ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
clowns and makeup. I'm sorry to alienate all the Kiss fans out there.
Again, I still kind of like Slipknot, and I realize how ridiculous it is, especially when they're rich, right? Like, and that's another thing.
I'll put it this way: I see it as kind of like, hey, you know what? I commend that traveling troupe of clowns for the way they put on their makeup, and they look the part. They look, and they have fans. They make money. They make a living off of it.
Yeah.
So hey, you know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Oh yeah. By the way, I don't want to talk about Slipknot more than is deserved, but
This
I
is
was
the
saying
Slipknot
before.
podcast.
I was saying before about about like my entrance into like harsh vocals and like so I liked System of a Down, I liked Slipknot, but then I had this like a weird elitist attitude towards anger in music, and I was like, if you're gonna have harsh vocals, be angry, and that's why I didn't like As I Lay Crying and like Atreyu and all that, because I was like, you're screaming, but it's all about relationships. And then like I thought the same thing about death metal for a long time, and I really was just like, in my mind, I was like, you have to be like Iron Maiden or Judas Priest or you know, or Iced Earth before all the racism. And
Well, I mean,
and in my mind, or even I was like, I'll accept Megadeth. I'll accept a guy really trying to sing who can't. I'll accept that.
At least he's trying.
But what's with this growly thing? What are you doing? And it just took a while. But now I like growly music, and some of the music I'm working on right now is harsh vocals.
I remember classic question. Keenan would ask me this, on like black metal and death metal, like the super heavy.
Well, you
stuff.
were always. Brad, or we'll edit out your last name.
No, but
Brad was a black metal guy. You're still like a
still
black
am.
metal.
I mean,
yeah.
I love the more extreme grindcore, black metal, death metal.
Yeah,
we get more into hardcore punk as well. You know that
we have to
at
at some point, maybe not this episode. We have to talk about deathcore. We have to acknowledge it, and we have to figure out if it's good or not.
But we'll do a deep dive.
I can't figure out if I like deathcore or not.
We'll do a deep dive one day. But he would always ask, "What are they so mad about, man?" Like,
yeah, I was that guy too.
You know?
I admit I was that guy. Like, you know,
that's the thing about like what was Limp Bizkit so mad about? Like, his girlfriend broke up with him, but then he wrote an album about it that got him signed to Interscope. You know,
yeah.
And the next album, they're like, "What? Well, Interscope's a offshoot of Warner Brothers, so we're like mistreated, man. Like, you know, we're not getting respect." You know, at some point, like if you're a white kid in America, you really shouldn't be mad about anything because you are one of the luckiest people
right
in existence to ever exist.
Yeah, but the word kid, I think, is the operating word there, because like kids are just angry, right? Like, you know, kids are just going to have anger.
Well, there's definitely
and they're not kids can't see the big picture.
I hate to think it's political, but like there is a thing about people say there's angry black man, and like that's what people are afraid of. But like there's angry white guys too.
Yeah. Oh my God. They're so much worse.
Like I can see what angry black man is mad about. You know, all the years of oppression stopped only like 60 or 80 years ago, very recently.
Yeah.
Whereas white people have been just owning and taking shit since the dawn of time.
Oh yeah.
And also the misogyny. You know, there's a recent uptick with that, with the Roe v. Wade thing coming back. Like it's kind of like.
Dude, a lot of music we listened to in the 90s.
Women rights.
A lot of music we listened to back then was misogynistic as hell, you know?
Yeah, and we could do a whole episode on,
Jesus,
what's the genre called, like brutal death metal or gore grind. There's a whole subgenre of like brutal death metal that's, you know, look up the band Mortician. You know, it's all about stabbing and dismembering women, and every sound clip is from horror movies of women screaming, and like there's something a little scary to me about guys who just love watching horror movies and the brutal death metal. Like, oh yeah, man, just love watching women being taken
Yeah.
apart and sewn back together. And it's like, I don't know.
And there was in metalcore, there was this whole like theme of like videos just having a woman tied to a chair for some reason.
Right.
and it's like, you know, like I as an outsider, I can make fun of metalcore because I never really liked it. But like, you know, looking back, I'm like, oof, what's that line from Seinfeld? That's not going to be good for music. That's not going to be good for anybody. But anyway, so, and that's funny, like you mentioned that too, because like, so, and this can kind of segment or segue into what we're doing now, right? Like,
Right. I was trying to
so
get there.
we both like music. We both got into metal. I was more into like the old school and like kind of power metal, thrash metal. You were more into like the death metal, black metal stuff. Nowadays, one thing that's really cool about the scene that I've noticed is that like everyone gets along. So like you'll go to a show with like a stoner metal band and then a rapper and then a thrash band.
Right.
And then,
There's no mix. There's no separation. Like back in the day, there actually
not
was.
that long ago.
If you went to a death metal show and you were wearing, you know, a punk shirt or whatever,
Dude, yeah, I will.
Right? Like there was
dude,
not as much unity.
When I was in another band in Tampa.
That was a bad example. I'm sorry, but
I was in a band called Archangel, and we were like kind of doing the old school thing, and that was like when I was in Rip Torn, and then after I left Rip Torn, I was still in Archangel for a little bit, and we opened for Obituary, great band, and
Yeah.
you know, like and Tampa locals, we've all like hung out and
who
partied
doesn't
with
love
them.
Obituary?
Rip Torn's opened for Obituary before
No, we
too.
didn't. We didn't get to.
No,
No, we never
Oh,
did.
I did.
Yeah.
Anyway, someone fucking threw a bottle at the stage. And
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we had singing. We were a band that had singing.
Mike Brady up there go, oh,
Yeah.
oh God.
And there was some people sitting at the bar with their arms crossed, just like kind of pissed off that we were even
Right.
up there. And that was not that long ago. That was like 2013, 14.
Well, in all fairness,
but it's not like that anymore.
the Brass Mug, the way they run shows is normally they're like your headliner. They always try to push them back past midnight.
Mm.
You know, and because they want people to stay and drink. I get the theory
Yeah.
behind it, but as a music goer, a concert goer, if you're told the show starts at 8:00
Yeah, that's not going to
and
happen.
you're there only to see Obituary, and they go on at 1 a.m.,
Yeah.
you're gonna be kind of pissed off. Like, why am I sitting through 5 hours of this bullshit?
Right. I mean,
Not to say Archangel was not
Archangel
bullshit.
was bullshit.
But-
Archangel was complete bullshit.
For somebody who likes Obituary, who's wanting to hear, you know, Turned Inside Out,
yeah.
when you got keyboards and
We had
high
keyboards
vocals,
and
they're gonna be like,
Halford-esque
just fucking
vocals,
get, just
yeah.
why, you know, why even do that? But because they're trying to because out of those 50 old guys that are like with their arms crossed, one of them might go like secretly be like, okay, I kind of like them, and might buy your CD. Like that's the whole point.
Well, my point is that in the last couple of years, I think that scene has changed in a great way, in that those people are way more like just open in saying that, right? Famous on the underground scene, band from Tampa, friends of ours, Beerwolf. They are total stoner.
Colorado traders.
Yeah, they moved to Colorado. But they
Just so
when
they
they
can
were
go celebrate the Avalanche winning the Stanley Cup.
yeah,
Bastards.
they caught it ahead of time. Yeah. You hear the cup got mailed to the wrong house.
Of course.
And so someone just opens their door and the Stanley Cup. Would you?
Bro, what would you
have
do?
I would have kept it.
Yeah.
Okay, I wouldn't have kept it, but I would have poured some liquor into it
Hell
and
yeah.
I would have drank out of it.
Yeah, I
and
would have
then,
drank out of
You
it.
know, I would have called all my friends.
Oh, taking some pictures. Yeah.
Yeah. And then probably maybe would have turned it in.
Right.
Um,
Just told them that, you know, I ordered a replica and I thought my replica had arrived. So
yeah.
I tell you what, why don't you guys put both behind my back? You guess which one? I don't know.
So anyway, yeah. So what Beerwolf was like the total stoner rock band. They sound kind of like The Sword, but like they'd open for death metal bands, and like
Yeah.
the fans would actually like them, and that wasn't unique to them. I think the scene has changed in a very cool way, and so you
Well,
know.
yeah, I mean, okay, so in their instance, I would say, yeah, I don't think they ever like opened for Obituary at the Brass Mug. Like for you guys to do that specifically was like a dangerous setup. But Beerwolf has always played.
But
they-
it was
they've-
years before.
They've
though.
mainly played shows. Oh, that's true. You guys did.
No,
Play
wait,
a
I'm
little
just
bit
saying
before Beerwolf.
over the short period of time.
But they don't play. I
it
would say they played a little bit smaller shows, I think, and so usually at smaller shows, people are just more generally, I think, open to stuff. Whereas like a bigger show, you're there to see the headliner.
Maybe
You know?
maybe I do think though, and I could be wrong, but I do think I've seen more bills where like there'll be like a punk band and a death metal band and like some young kids trying out a
But
deathcore
But
thing.
I'm asking you is it's got to. The difference is it a band you know? If it's a band you know, like if it was like if Terror came through, do you know Terror?
No,
Terror?
no, but I
Okay.
want you to like me.
Okay. Oh, bad example.
By the way, I'm a kind of a hack. By the way,
Well,
When
no,
it
they're a hardcore band. I would expect you to know them.
okay, yeah.
I just thought maybe you wouldn't. That was a good because they came through Tampa recently, and
Okay.
they always put on like shows with like 6 to 8 local openers, and they're usually hardcore bands though that go. It's like if Beerwolf opened that show, they would probably get a little guff or whatever. I can't think of the word.
Okay, so it's not entirely open yet to where like everyone can play with everyone, but I'm saying it's getting closer.
Yeah, I'm saying this. It's getting closer, yes, but bigger shows that have headliners, like actual names, you're gonna have assholes there that are there specifically for that band.
That's true.
And get mad at like, well, I can't believe they let this band open for them. This band sucks. Like,
oh yeah.
And then you find out, like, if you actually ask the artist, they'd be like, "Oh, that's my favorite band."
I'm saying, oh
I
my
like
god,
this local
yeah,
band.
because I've been that guy, dude. Like I've been
Oh,
that
yeah.
guy. I remember, I think Megadeth brought Avenged Sevenfold and Bullet for My Valentine on tour, and I was that guy going, "Why are they bringing these emo bands with them?"
Yeah.
And here's the secret. I actually like Avenged Sevenfold and Bullet for My Valentine. but outwardly, this was back when I was in college, so good over 10 years ago, to my credit. But outwardly, I was like, oh, Dave Mustaine's selling out by bringing these emo bands with him.
Right.
I get that they're not actually emo bands. I get that.
But I mean, were you trying to be funny?
No.
You actually honestly felt that, even though you liked those bands?
Dude, being a metalhead was a weird thing, man. Like, and we all had those moments where we felt on the inside that we couldn't like something because it wasn't metal enough.
There's definitely gatekeeping. I mean,
there's a shitload of
When
gatekeeping.
you're into something and you like really get into it, it's hard. You don't want casual fans to feel like they're equal to you. Like, hey, look, I put in hours and hours of listening and studying, and like I've put in the work, and you can't just come along and be like, oh yeah, I like it too, just as much as you. Like,
yeah.
Well, what are your credentials?
However, you should be able to.
I know. It's all a mental thing. It's
yeah.
But I mean, really, you should be like, oh wow, you're just getting into it. Let me show you the right things. Like that's kind of.
And I think I'm noticing. Great segue. I think I'm noticing that more in the comedy scene. So we have kind of told ourselves, like
we're comedians.
Yes,
we are comedians.
We have told ourselves to go to open mic nights together to kind of like encourage each other.
Right. Hold hands, walk in there.
Yes.
Loud and proud.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. But yeah, we have agreed to start going to these open mic nights and try to like encourage each other to get up there and try out comedy, because I can't say that I feel like I've succeeded in metal in that, like, I mean, yeah, I've had music that when you look on Spotify or whatever was popular, YouTube, whatever was around back when I was doing music, there was people listening in like Australia, but it was like 2 people in Australia listening, not like thousands, right? So like I've had music that I'm proud of, but like I've never done the comedy thing before. Always wanted to. And I think you have too, right?
Yeah, I've definitely always felt like a comedian. Like it was just gonna happen naturally. But unfortunately, I started smoking weed at a young age, so it kind of.
Well,
I feel that it really inhibits my motivation to do anything. Like Monday,
it could make you funnier though.
Well, I really wanted to call out on Monday because I just want to stay home and smoke out and just chill out. But yeah, I've learned that you just have to get up and go put the work in. Like you have to start somewhere.
Yeah. So I've done 4 or 5 nights now, and you've done one with me and then one a while ago, right?
Yeah.
And when I would say that, we just mean like open mic, like the starting off. Like, so any audience that's still listening, you are starting with us essentially on our journey to try out the comedy scene.
So yeah, we're at ground zero of comedy, basically starting out together.
Yeah.
As noobs.
Yeah. Total noobs.
Well, let me ask you this: What kind of comedian do you think you're going to be?
I have no idea, dude. And that's a good question because I don't know. So when I've gotten up, and we're talking about 5-minute sets, right? In front of other open micers, but some of whom are people who've been doing this for a long time. So some of them, I guess, have, some professional cred, right? Some of the people at these open mics have like opened for like your, Jimmy Cars or whoever. I don't know why that's the name that came to mind, but like, have
He's opened the car door for Jimmy Carr. Jimmy Carter's car? What? Jimmy Carter's car.
Okay, do not. That's not funny. Do not
edit. Edit here.
We don't have a producer.
And edit.
But like when we saw Shane Gillis a couple years ago.
Oh, did we go together?
You
for
came
that?
with me.
Oh yeah. Okay. I'm glad. So you got me to go to that show, right?
Yes.
I'm so glad you did because his stand-up set was like one of the best I've seen at Side Splitters.
Yeah.
And his jokes that he did that night ended up on his YouTube special.
Yeah.
And watching that YouTube, like, I forget where I saw it, but, I recommended it on Twitter from some comedian that I respect. I'm like, wow, they like Shane Gillis. And wait a second, wow, he did the same jokes. Like, I was experienced these
we
live.
We were there seeing it getting worked out.
That was definitely a very weird feeling of like, I've heard these before.
Yeah, I mean,
I've heard these before. This is kind of cool.
I've had that happen before. I saw Mark Maron, and then he was also doing the same or similar jokes that ended up on, I think, his last special. But the cool thing about that was actually there was a couple having a fight in the front row.
Nice.
And we, my girlfriend and I were in the bleachers, but up in the front row, there's like a couple having a fight. And it's typical just white people fighting. Like the guy's doing the arms in the air. Like I could just imagine he's going, babe, come on. and Mark Maron like stops the show. He like walks to the front of the stage. And he's just like, all right, guys, he essentially just becomes a couples counselor for like 5 minutes. Yeah. And then I think the security brought them out. Anyway, so when we saw
Great story, Mario.
Right. When we saw Shane Gillis, though, like there was like 3 openers. I don't believe any of them were people with him. I think they were all Tampa locals who opened it.
Yeah, honestly, I can't recall any of the openers.
It was years ago. We were pretty drunk.
Sorry, openers.
But point being, like, some of those people at that level will come to the open mics that we're at, but we're not at that level by any means.
I just had a revelation, Mario. I just thought about, so back in the day, when you were in a band, right? Whenever you would tell someone that, they would always be like, oh, my cousin is in a band. Really? Your cousin's in a band? What's the band's name? Oh, I don't know. My cousin's in it. Like,
I don't know, but they're really great, though.
Yeah, or like, I saw this really great band one time, and they were so great, you would love them. What's their name? I don't know. Like,
my favorite was when they would...
No one can remember anyone's band's name. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. My favorite is when what they're describing is exactly what you do, but they hate it. So like, my cousin's in the band, and I don't know.
Shit like you, but
I don't really like it. It's like a lot of yelling. I can't really like tell what they're doing.
Oh, I see.
But it's like, it's like, I guess it's metal. I don't know. Right. They're having fun though.
They named their band after some lame actor or something. Like, it is the cheesiest shit you'd ever see in your life. So, what's your band name, by the way? Yeah. What's your band name? Rip Torn.
Yeah. Well, my favorite was
But let me just say this real quick.
Okay.
So, comedy is actually better because, like, we both could probably be in metal bands and thrive. There's probably start our own metal bands and thrive, but the chances of success are lower than, like, you're on your own. Either you succeed or you fail. It's like there's you can't blame anyone else or you wait on anyone else. It's all on you.
I was thinking,
and your cousin can remember your name. Like, my cousin's a comedian. What's his name? Mario whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Mario whatever.
That's actually a good name. That's a good pseudo last name for me. Whatever. I was actually thinking there's something funny here. I don't know if it's like open mic night worthy, but there's something funny about being like, if I'm at a 5-minute open night and I'm bombing, I can just walk off stage. But if you're like in the middle of like a 7-minute proggy thrash song, like what we used to write in Rip Torn, and everyone hates it, you have to finish the song.
Right.
So like there's like something like a physical comedy aspect of like being like you're playing a solo, but you're also like your face is just going, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry, I have to play this solo. This is part of the song, but I'm sorry you have to sit through it. We'll be done soon.
Right, or if you punch a woman in the crowd, it's way easier to get away. You just drop the mic and run out.
Please don't tell me that's from personal experience.
I'm just saying, like, if you did something that was like unforgivable to the audience, you could just drop the mic and run. Whereas, like, if you were there with your big setup, your guitar, your
Oh
amp,
God, yeah.
you remember
have
the
to take your-
breakdown
you
from
have
the
to-
stage?
Oh, it's terrible.
So, like, that's one thing I'm glad I don't have to take any gear. I don't have to set up anything. I don't have to tune anything. I don't have to really practice.
We should probably practice. Practice is
You know,
probably
I
the thing we
really,
should
I
do.
feel like I'm one of those political comedians who just goes up there and just wings it and
Oh yeah?
rails.
Oh yeah? Are
against
you the
system.
next Carlin? Are you
No, more like the
going-
next David Cross / Lewis
Oh,
Black
Okay, okay.
with
So-
a little bit of Ralphie May because I'm fat. I don't know if you can tell by the way I talk, but
they can tell.
Mario, what are you talking about?
So you asked what kind of comedian I see myself as, and here's the thing: I get so nervous that I think I move around and I talk fast, but that's not like deliberate. Like I'm not trying to be like a hey, you see this?
Right.
Ah! Kind of
Yeah.
guy, but like I just become that on stage,
Yeah.
and I would rather not be.
If I just to give you a little, when I was watching you on Monday, I did notice that you kind of like were like you fold your arm a little bit and look down, like kind of like been pacing.
Yeah,
So
I
almost,
definitely
almost
pays.
like I gotta get through this thing, so I'm just gonna look down and talk to you guys real quick, and you know, I don't know, it might work for you though.
Well,
it might
I mean,
be like your
yeah,
style. You know?
It's not deliberate. It's not what I'm going
If
for.
I could be though, I would want to be like a Mitch Hedberg type,
Deadpan, you mean, or
kind of deadpan,
stoner, kind of like.
yeah, more like just like weird insights, but like in a you know, kind of like I never thought of it that way. The best joke to me is one where I laugh because it's true, right? Like
Mhm.
a lot of comedy is in truth. Like,
Yeah.
hey, that's kind of funny because that's kind of true, and I never thought of it that way. That's the best ultimate for me.
Yeah, you know, Brad, I never thought of it that way.
Whoa. Did I
Ooh,
just do
title
it?
for the episode? Title for the episode?
Title for the show.
Ooh, maybe.
Well, we're definitely past 15 minutes, so I think
yeah.
it might be time to wrap it up. What do you think?
Yeah, we can wrap this bad boy up.
If anyone is listening,
if anyone's listening,
we have the email that we're gonna create right now. Hopefully, it's still available.
right
At
at the
Gmail.
beginning of the show, we were trying Brad
Mario
Pod. So yeah, Brad Mario Pod at gmail.com. Now,
Oh, funny thing about Gmail, my favorite Pat Oswalt joke
oh,
about Gmail is that he's like, you know that someone owns the address shemail at gmail.com. I'm just saying, it's a Patton Oswalt joke, so don't get mad at me.
and please don't get mad at us, Patton Oswald, for taking your.
Patton, if you're listening to this, God bless you.
So, I did want to say though, like, yeah, I've done like 4 nights or so, and the most recent one I pretty much bombed, which like, I can't really speak to if I did well or not the ones before that, but I definitely got some laughs, and yeah, like the last like Thursday night, I like just was not like a lot of the comics were doing dirty jokes. I tried to do like. This is something I think is intellectually whatever.
Right.
I also had a thing making fun of COVID deniers, and some of the people in the crowd may have been COVID deniers. So,
Oh, wow.
I don't know. Maybe that's me. Maybe that's me projecting my anger at them not laughing.
You could tell because they were the ones not wearing masks, right?
Yeah, it's Florida. No one's wearing masks.
Everyone in Florida is a COVID denier at this point. I mean,
But I had a thing
we're all
about.
complicit.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll talk more on future things about like, you know, jokes we are working
This is the
out.
pre-taped call-in show.
But please message us, email us. If you know us, just fucking text us. Feedback, and also
Send us a wolf.
if there are ideas for names
Title?
for the show. So again, I like the idea of comedy is metal or comedy is metal is comedy. Kind of a good logo comes to mind, like a circle. I was thinking though, what are some names for some things we do on guitar if we don't know what we're doing? Like winging it, like I don't know, whammy dives.
Ghetto sweeps.
Is that when you don't know how to sweep pick, but you just
Yeah.
kind of like make the sweep pick motion?
That's
and
what I was like.
hope it doesn't-
Whenever I would try to do it, that's what they would call it. Like when we would practice. I think
Oh, really?
Keenan would call it that or something like ghetto sweeps.
I
Although when I think about it, though, like if not in guitar terminology, it sounds fucking terrible.
Yeah.
So we can't call the show Ghetto Sweeps.
No. Pinch harmonic, something about pinch harmonics, because that was something I would do. Like if I was in the middle of a solo when I was an Archangel and I forgot the solo, I would just play a bunch of pinch harmonics because a crowd responds the same
Well, there's
to
a
pinch
show
harmonics as they do to shredding.
Okay, there's Dan Harmon's D&D show, Harmon Quest, right? So we could have our show be called Pinch Harmonic Quest.
Interesting, but it doesn't really touch on the comedy aspect so much.
I mean, it's funny though.
Just riffing it, just winging it.
Riffing.
Probably
the
taken.
Oh, bro.
Probably taken.
Okay,
but
let's do a Google real quick.
Let's do a Goog.
Because there's probably some asshole named Riffin.
Dude, it is
there.
so hard to not do a Mark Normand, by the way.
What's a Mark Normand?
When you're like, comedy. Or give it a Goog. Like, it's so hard to not, like he has nailed the, like,
a little side.
Those little things that we all kind of think, like,
Well, I mean, I like Jim Gaffigan.
Comedy,
I like the way
Yeah.
Jim Gaffigan does it, where he has like that like old, like kind of like a Karen voice.
Oh yeah.
This guy's doing a lot of jokes about this. I don't like that. My mom would I would show her because I like to show her comedy stuff, and she doesn't like that though. She doesn't like that. I don't know why he does the quiet voice.
She identifies with it too much.
Yeah. Hey.
Hi. We're just wrapping up.
So we have our first guest on the podcast.
Roommate.
And it's a lady.
So we were thinking about some ideas. I do think it'd be funny to like describe a band.
So here are
of your favorite comedian.
The podcast names. We have Riffin with Griffin.
Oh, that's already exists.
Riffin Radio.
Oh, we're giving them shout outs.
Gone Riffin. Now that's just good. That's just good pun work right there.
That is great pun work.
Puns. I mean, I think Riffin alone might be
Riffin with Brad and Mario. That's kind of old radio kind of sound, but that's not bad.
Riff Raff. I'll be Riff. You be Raff.
Well, I don't know if you know Jared, a friend of
from Subway.
No, you might know Jared from Subway.
Because I'm fat.
I was thinking because you touch kids.
Oh, well, edit. I don't and never would or will
be fat. I need Subway. I got my friend Jared. He's in a surf rock band called Reef Raff.
Oh,
and he was actually the guitarist in Archangel before I joined. But anyway, Riff Raff isn't bad though. Riff Laugh. No, that's bad. Anyway, if you're listening,
Riff, you're listening.
Oh, hey, puns. See, dude. Once I start doing a Mark Normand, I can't stop.
You just can't stop.
Hey, comedy. But anyway, if you're listening, if you have ideas, if your ideas include things like never try this again and just sell all your equipment.
If you have complaints, really, we'd like to hear those.
We have a complaint department. We'll direct you to. It's Brad's mom, actually.
And so far, she ain't got no complaints.
What is this?
What is that?
What is this podcast? What does that even mean? All right, yeah.
That's actually a pretty good joke. I like that. Like,
nice.
Yeah, your mom's a complaint department, and she ain't got no complaints. Like,
we'll work
she's
it
not
out.
Complaining about. I don't.
Maybe the name of the podcast could be something about how we can't fucking finish it. We've been wrapping up for like 20 minutes.
Podcast.
Okay, so yeah, I think we'll wrap up now if that's cool with you.
Yeah, I think you know what? Last podcast name idea. Let's call it the 15-minute podcast.
And each one could be
3 hours long.
Has this been an hour? It's probably been more than that.
Right.
We might have to cut this up a bit. Maybe not. I don't know. Hey, podcasting. I can't stop.
Well, I can, and we're going to stop right now. So once again, email us at bradmariopod@gmail.com. We need help.
We need help. Bye.